Hello, there are countries A through Z have smart leaders, but they're missing the collusion. Excuse me. Slash S. All organized crime acts and methods that industries have that they're only capable of self-honoring roles with for how the breaching method measures and maintains roles with people pretending that jobs are worth what they are not, and offensively preventing mandated law to be defended properly as roles with way worse. And then they can't go back and be honest about what happened at locations, including interbranch locations, have been used criminally, foreign influence, tactically, delusions, raw, since before we were born. Since I was a little kid in the Britain Superior Court and Connecticut courts, the judicial branch offices, and the corrections offices, they have collusions with organized crimes, with wire crime acts and methods, falsified police reports, identity thefts, frauds. They have roles with child abusers, leaders of kids, first force. They had time collusions with interbranch family members, foreign and domestic medical families tied to them, putting fake transcripts in databases with mental health people, tactically delusions raw too. Criminally foreign influence, tactically delusions raw, fact, treatment, nature, quality aspects, and nature principle treatments. We can observe this, but they're not getting on paper. New Britain Superior Court has a bunch of people with other courts from Connecticut, personally and professionally involved with Hartford Hospital, and names next to it are who have been refusing to communicate with me and have been roles with investigators, foreign and domestic intelligence, with all kinds of natures of organized crimes intercities and intra-cities, intercampuses, and intra-campuses. The same ones, time collusions with the news, identity thefts, fraud, slanders, organized crimes at crime scenes, collusions, and or with the difference with the names next to them. All natures of investigators used remotely, criminally foreign influence, tactically, delusions, rotten, pretending other, just like they were when they right through world wars, just like they were right through the Civil War, because of what was entrenched. Our founders had to classify for themselves how and why they did not have, and for us, how and why they did not have free speech at the time. There were too many juxtaposed, totally distinct natures of organized crimes. And time collusion slash S with use slash S of the difference of the roles, the difference of the names are involved, the differences of differences uses. This breaching method has us through as systems that can't afford to defend themselves roles with differences as systems tactical terror from natures. How nature uses difference. We are a different species body than other species bodies. But we are shown the identity of a distinct identity of simultaneous nature is generating our species body and the other species bodies. And it is not us and it is not them. But we are given means to discern how there's a hyper simultaneous, a distinct identity of simultaneous nature, a distinct identity of valuable aggression that is making more of its identity a forever nature through temporary / lasting space nature. Anyone who tries to deny that this is the more practical and more probable than what has been theorized, they need to self-value criminally foreign influence, tactical delusions, raw, fact, treatment, nature, quality aspects in nature, and them having been, and perspective towards that. Speaking about these things, leaving out the original hyperforeign breaching method. Countries A through Z, they would agree to help the countries that have nuclear bombs help themselves if they help them at the same time do better than free things. Because of this is an imposition that is unequally, well, non-distinctly too, equally upon countries A through Z, where nature will continually demonstrate with negative value nature progressions, acts of natures, acts like predicate acts, like criminally foreign influence / hyper-criminally foreign influence, wire crime acts and methods. These are people that are dishonestly pretending they perceive relationships between kids that aren't real at all. And other ones they're faking what's actually recorded. Joe Demore, I don't know who was on that phone with him. Like when kids call people on the phone, in other words, I know that's why I never tried to contact him. I don't have nothing to do with that. They're trying to make other, they have roles of homebreak in my area also with retired police chiefs, involved also with drugs and medicines crimes with kids and doctors at Hartford Hospital with the businesses and houses next to it through time. And where Demore's market is now, involved with wire crime acts and fake conversations and ties to kids at police stations. No one's looking in those databases. At campuses of all ages and natures, including medical campuses where a whole bunch of different fire departments, family members run into Hartford Hospital to hide life progression. 3 times. One time I forced people to call the police without telling them why. I knew they were going to have to, they were going to be caught. They were going to have to record themselves because you can't record the police. I mean, I could at that point, but just to make sure, because these people are framing kids around their own, even when they're not around their own, they're just in the same age range. They're keeping the kids of the grades above and below involved with identity thefts and frauds, and with kids that aren't even in classes tied to each other, so there's no means to counter properly. On a mass scale, they're all natures of investigators. They have all kinds of predicate acts methods at countries A through Z. Here, Anthony, see suits and ties, counters and exceptions, self-value uses of their array, of their differences, for logic to get over on fact human nature, using how we are a human species, different body of individual bodies, by that which is generating all differences, to show us its own. We don't want to be that part of its body, like a cancer killing itself, which is killing its own body. Rather than being considering ourselves family members, we're supposed to pay attention to how we are a human species body of individual bodies, and all group differences generated by that singular identity also. A value progression that is not our species body, is not the other ones, but it is all things anyway. But while it is too, all things the way we know, but also in ways that we can't mimic. Otherwise, it demonstrates it to us. The rest of its complete nature will only stay one way, positive unto itself. And as value here, or our value is forced here, from here. As forced space nature transfer as lethal bodies. At once a species body, then we move to seas. So in other words, we can do things better than free as a human species body with the same plan. And rather than have it cost us money to communicate things, it's about the hyper positive. So it just fits with a movie that's perfect for it. We have a movie that's going to show the difference between criminal foreign influences and hyper criminal foreign influences, and where and how a breaching method measures and maintains the names of the people, the sciences, as a certain type of victim / hyper victim, self-valuing that being and having been used remotely, criminally, foreign influence, tactically, delusions raw, per the relativity of subject treatments at each age and nature of fact treatment nature. See, the nature of debates contain quality aspects in nature themselves as evidences. And the maps uses. A whole bunch of people involved with Walker Hill Road and Wethersfield, Connecticut, involved with identity theft, fraud, slanders instances against me. And with conjunctions to that, like 175, that are recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed, involved with intelligence families, and the families in the news that are warring with each other. Involved also and next to Central Connecticut State University and all sides of it. That's in New Britain, Connecticut. This is from Wethersfield, Connecticut. Increasingly, educators and their students, kids and adults too, intercities, have been collusion /s with uses of their differences, where they have not an ounce of integrity, and they pretend other, exactly the breach of their wants and needs. and wherein how they are good people, everyone's naturally good. Everyone, too, by the way. Even those people, like, where there are the most shootings. Where there are the most shootings. There are the most overt collusion / S that we have not addressed with the hyperforeign breaching method that even has replaced what nature communicates about black people's rights of eyes, and about how a breaching method reassigned nature's communications when nature's not only communicating as criminal insidiousness nature or criminally foreign influence, but there is also such a thing as hypercriminal foreign influences. I'm not a lawyer, but we're going to have to define this because nature shows us. Like, for example, there were hypercriminal foreign influences that both northern states, northern colonies, and southern colonies, and northern states and southern states had collusion / S with. Our founders communicated this. Both the North and South had roles with slavery. And there were more than 13 colonies when they first had the first 13 involved, because they were key people inside those colonies were counter-extorted, forced to break the syntactical collusions against themselves and everyone else to an extent. So they were being sensed, but they were internationally monitored conversations, sensing everyone an extent of collusion against themselves and everybody else. Otherwise, that body was, they were asking questions to maintain those collusions secured. They have audacity to speak about industry and or jobs, the value, leaving this out, how nature uses value. Nature shows us the difference of value here, or as it forced from here too. Nature shows us that we could use systems ulterior from its own. We could even be self-valued roles with it while haven't been used remotely, right, where no one self-values it. That's exactly what was manifest. No one wanted roles, replacing what nature communicates with black people's rights of eyes. But then you start stacking laws and you're going to be in trouble and hurt and worse if you don't have self-valued roles with that breaching method, and there are exceptions made. Everyone starts using exception. Nature starts appreciating it syntactically, physically, and nature-wise. As styles needs of nature that increasingly can't defend that and afford to be, let alone to protract short words proper regarding exception, how nature uses exception nature. Some things are only natural as criminal insidiousness nature to show us everywhere its identity is, that we could discern it to an extent. It comes with its complete identity of a relationship to itself, and only increasing value with that constantly. It teaches about what is constant and variable, distinctly from how we have, opposites and simultaneously allowed to be appreciated. We have it offensively. The names of the people, the sciences, their syntax, their theory. Criminally foreign influence, tactical illusions, raw. We have to begin with understanding how and why our founders, and James Madison as the only founder we know the name of, how and why they did not have free speech. How and why they did not have free speech, because there was a human fact-achieving nature breaching method entrenched. A torture, extortion, slavery method, 3 ways manifest. Fact-achieving nature slavery. Therefore, physically. Not legitimate logic, nature, and reason could justify jobs as is. It could justify what we see when we see people in the news, or people that we can't even see behind the bricks in the buildings behind people in rap videos. Clearer than day, the suburbs were designed. Criminally foreign influence, tactical delusions, raw for torture, extortion, slavery method. Clearer than day, the debates on that are using criminally foreign influence, tactical delusions, raw. Fact, human nature, quality aspects of nature, self-value. Right where they don't self-value too. The difference of that is being used remotely by the breaching method. This breaching method abused you at each age of humanity. We have these simple things. We have when we were little kids, we could appreciate it how three ways. There are criminal foreign influences / hyper criminal foreign influences involved. The criminal foreign influences would go away if we get the hyper foreign out. Vaccines, I'll shout, demand. We can. So in other words, we need to make a hyper archetypal criminal enterprise inside a hyper counter theater, because we have all theater natures of positive treatments and negative treatments as collusion / S to keep the identity of relativity to ourselves of the human fact nature breaching method from our discernment, even though nature was and is increasingly demonstrating it to us. There is a human fact treatment and nature breaching method that has all roles with itself, needs nature styles that can afford to have itself relativity to positive and negative its way, discerned properly. We would have discerned the difference between criminal insidiousness natures of peace and hyper peace, for example, so to speak. I'll whisper creek. In other words, don't disbelieve. So get me off the fake conversations with WFSB. Connecticut's Channel 3 News record express demonstrating confirming they have roles with foreign and domestic military families. Also inter-campuses and intra-campuses involved with predicate acts with them, including with sexual medical offenders of kids and people that work with the British Superior Court, Hartford Courts, Connecticut's District Court, people involved with organized crime acts and methods that are the collusion, the difference of guilt at the judicial branch offices or next to it, or just going by it. That is also exploited, manifest that way. Same ones involved that way with the state corrections officers. Same ones involved with prisons, people who run prisons and their patients and criminals involved with body dumping spots and names next to them. Campuses, names next to them, other natures of conjunctions to the kids and to the leaders of the schools. Not by accident. Same time as collusion / S with news, high gang theft, fraud, slanders with them. When did the news stop being criminally foreign influence, collusions, all natures of crime scenes, black people? The names of the people, the sciences. Forgiveness is because the different. Sometimes it's them the worst. Sometimes it's the overt criminalized private ones, even when they're not in the cases. All sides of criminal and civil cases. In the courts themselves, the police forms, the source, the interbranch of work criminal private ones, the news, putting the same sequence ships at the same time, the same fake transcripts, self-valued roles. That's also relative evidence as why, and how they have subject treatments that are so stupid through time, leaving out black people's rights of eyes, using all means to get away with pretending to be smart. We have the names of the people, the sciences, offensively have collusions they have to confess. If they start censoring people using short words properly, even halfway properly with reason, logic, and convictions, because they already have the reason, logic, conviction, styles, needs, and natures used as criminal insidious nature, pretending other, and used for worse to screen a breaching method in the past, active now, with all things grouped, all kinds of things, plural, all kinds of nature, negative value, nature, progressions, acts, and natures, acts like predicate acts, whole methods of predicate acts, whole wire crime acts and methods that the names of the people, the sciences have, that are as time collusions with overt criminal enterprises and private ones, even when they're from not involved with the names involved, with he said, she said, real and or made up. They're leaving out what comes first all the time. And they're leaving out how there's all kinds of fake transcripts and ties between people pretended into databases. And so they refuse to identify themselves into branch, and they search what people say to fake and lie about what their motivations are. And they have been doing this, including digital crime methods. Facebook has people personally and professionally involved with Harper Courts and the Britain Superior Court, with the former director of the FBI, Robert Luskin, and with former mayors from Wethersfield, involved with overt criminal enterprises, private ones, sexual and medical offenders of kids, increasingly people at Hartford Hospital, and the businesses and houses next to it. Time collusions with the news, too, with identity theft, fraud, slanders with them, refusing to identify themselves, collusions with all natures of crime scenes, proven child abusers, leaders of kids, years apart, first forced, involved with their kids, and adults and their families colluding against the other people from their age ranges, even when they're not in their classes. In other words, you need to get them on paper, one name and sequence. And I want a response for what I caught them doing, and confess. Also, the confessions of a principal upskirt nature, not about upskirt pictures, but about other names too, and name switching, in all kinds of ways. Like using the name Mike Levine in the syntax of a Mike of a Bean, Jim Bean. Mike Levine, Jim Bean, they're playing games with that wire crime action methods of Wethersfield police chiefs retired and their families and intimate ties. Also with foreign and domestic medical offenders of kids. They have time collusions with overt criminal enterprises, private ones. Sexual crime acts, even on digital recorded. Changing, faking digital evidences, whiting forensics with a bunch of people involved with wire crimes. And as people increasingly involved with predicate acts with Wethersfield police conversations and their fake ties to other kids with the ones faking things in databases with them and forced to rolls with it and with the other police forms and with federal and a whole bunch of the countries here at the same time. Prepare the mind. These are also people criminally foreign influence uses of Judge Napolitano's sense and sensibilities and his Facebook page with Fox Connecticut News. Increasingly has a bunch of people next to Fox Connecticut News involved intercities with predicate acts with them and World Trade Center predicate acts with them. Also with other news locations and the Saudi attackers and people involved with differences, racketeering, worse than war crimes relative to where we have also as evidences their qualities, aspects, and fact human nature itself, and relativity to exceptions and exception nature. How they've been faking it, appreciating a fake. Not one partake. No one partakes with nature. Proper, it's where pure. Maxine. I teach those things belong. Come on. Republic, hear your name. Return.